once and for all. And you remember we agreed here to bring our, as ministers, our CSs on the floor of the House. And that is all the Senate needed to have done so that they do not continuously, because even if you call the finance minister, and I will tell them today, because I've been waiting for this, that it is unfair and very wrong, ethically wrong, for a senator to abuse completely and disregard this is a CS of finance and just say, and you can even chase him out. It is very wrong. Yet you know very well the function you have called him, it is not on the revenue, division of revenue bill. It is not on county monies. You have called him on issues you have heard on the newspapers and all over, and now they have to come and substantiate whether it is true or not. It is unfortunate, very wrong. And so for me, one of the things I would wish to tell the Senate today, Mr. Speaker, which today we were with a senator somewhere, and I told them this. We agreed as a country to have a presidential system. I have not seen anywhere in America where the Senate will interfere in any matter of the Congress. None. And I told him it is unfortunate that the Senate can interfere in all matters of the National Assembly, disregarding completely their role. That is why we have a challenge right now with governors. Today, if the Senate was functioning, Mr. Speaker, we would be having a law saying the county secretary should now be recruited from their county services board, so that we know very well you have a substantive county secretary than the way the governors are just removing them every 6 months, enacting one comes in. That role they've disregarded, they are on this one. And so, Mr. Speaker, as we speak on this, we need a very clear communication that indeed if the matter you are calling a CS, a PS, has no matter to deal with counties, then the CS has a right to write back a letter and tell them this matter in consensus does not at all affect counties on the matter we are doing. That way, we will have some decorum and stop bashing each other on the media. We go on a sitting, you find we are hitting each other with senators. You wonder. And that is why they are just joking with CDF. Even today, I told the member, you have no business saying CDF is a county function. It is not. And we were about to go into some serious conflict, but I just told him, I want Senate to respect the National Assembly the way we have respected the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Moses Kirima, then Honorable Tom Kajuang.
Thank you.
Then Honorable David Ochieng.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Junior or not junior, here we are all members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to address this issue. This is an issue which, as really, can I be given a chance? This is a very serious matter. This is a very serious matter which requires a lot of attention to all of us. Mr. Speaker, sir, before I came to this August House, I used to practice constitutional law as a lawyer in the corridors of courts. And I used to study the Constitution as it was and the standing orders of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I used to know at that material time that there is a difference between the laws of Parliament and the laws of the Senate. And I knew very well that the Senate was meant to participate, supervise, oversight, and protect county governments and all issues which are relevant to county matters. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, sir, I knew very well that the National Assembly major mandate was to legislate, oversight the national government, and do anything which pertains to the public as it relates to the matters concerning the executive, where it relates to the public matters. Those are the things which I used to know before I came to this house. When I came here, Mr. Speaker, sir, I realized that from the year 2013, when we came up with bicameral house, the executive, in one way or the other, decided to conjure with Senate to an extent that it allowed or it started cohabiting with the Senate in one way or the other to minus or to subtract the strength of this House, the National Assembly, by allowing it to double form the committees, of which committees are not allowed by the Constitution. Because you come and find that the Senate is summoning the Ministry of Education, the minister, and anybody concerned to university matters or higher learning institutions matters. At the same time, you come and find that the Senate is going ahead to summon the Minister for Foreign Affairs and the Minister for Defense. One will wonder where the county matters are relating to the defense matters of this country. One will wonder where the county matters are coming together with the university matters. The other day, Mr. Speaker, as we were handling Kenyatta University hospital matters, we found that the Senate was doing the same, and it had nothing to do with the Senate. The other day, when we were handling matters to do with defense, the Mbatuku issues, we came and found that the Senate is also handling the same matters. So these two houses, the Senate and the National Assembly, they end up giving contradictory rulings and opinions. And it's the National Assembly and the Senate, respective houses, which should be coming up with answers which are not contradicting, because the public expects to be protected by these two houses. One at the county level, another one at the national level. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is the high time when the three arms of the government should sit down, not in just the two speakers, and iron out the issues, and avoid where we have duplication of work for the two houses. Mr. Speaker, if I am not wrong, I'll say that, as it has been said before, the Senate has very little work to do. It shouldn't be meeting only when it is dealing with counter issues. If you interpret the Constitution well as it is that the Senate should not even be sitting on daily basis because it has no work to do. It should be meeting on maybe quarterly basis or 1 year per term. One time per year, so that at least it can come with work from the county government. The Senate has exposed us to the county government. The Senate has failed to play its role to protect the national resources which we allocate to county government, whereby governors have gone all the way.
Honorable Kirima, you have 30 seconds to be done.
I'm bringing that the Senate to do its role to protect the public, the taxpayers' money at the county government, so that at least the money which is being squandered by the governors at least can be protected through the Senate. But now it has abandoned its work and it has descended to interfere with the work of this House. What do we do? Can the three arms of the government meet? That's the executive, the assembly, and then the judiciary, and iron out this matter, because now, as per this House, it's here to protect the Constitution. If you remember just 1 week ago, Mr. Speaker, if you can allow me just 2 seconds or so. If you remember, the last 2 weeks, we were standing here to protect the Constitution as it is, and that's why we carried out the activities which we carried out for the last 1 month, and it didn't bear fruits. Can this one be done exactly like that in this Article 96? We come out clear as per protecting the Constitution, because now we are allowing the Constitution to be abused by the same House, which shouldn't be protecting the same Constitution, Mr. Speaker, sir. I thereby lay my case.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Kirima. The Honorable T.J. Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be very brief on this matter. I don't want to lament, because we are reducing this House in the book of lamentation. And I think that probably we are answering I also don't know whether those senators or those people concerned are watching these devices. So perhaps we may be talking to ourselves. But I first of all want to take issue with the deputy leader of majority. In your position, and buttressed by your able lady, your deputy on your right, in those enviable positions, you don't lament. You create leadership. Let some of us from the backbench lament and spew everything that we want, but you take us to where resolutions will be found. Now we are adding you the bad girl. Yes, we are adding you the bad girl into your arsenals. You are leaders. You must come back to us with positions of leadership that we can take. First of all, I would have wished that the chair of finance would have raised this issue when the substantive speaker was present. But that notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, you then now take the role to give us a reasoned response, because this is a very big issue touching on constitutional law and interrelationship between the houses. I think that we need to involve a more diplomatic approach. You probably want to think and look at a group of persons, and I suppose that they could be ranking members of both houses, to advise the speakers, the two speakers. Because one of the issues that we had in the other parliament was the discord, which was apparent between the leadership of the Senate and the leadership. In this leadership, I mean the speakers of the Senate and the Speaker of the National Assembly. It was very difficult, even on a simple issue, such as to see which bill goes to which house, was difficult. And yet the Constitution seems to say very clearly how that can be handled. I think that we need to have a committee of ranking members advising the Speaker of the National Assembly. Also, a committee of ranking members advising the Speaker of the Senate. That Speaker of the Senate was once in this house and knows inside this house, ins and out. So we should come with a common position that we need to help, number one, devolution, but we also want to help this institution, Parliament, to stand on its own. And we need to come with some bilateral rules, bicameral rules, which then can help us in such issues such as the cabinet secretaries or the executive, how they interface with the Senate and how they interface with Because these cabinet secretaries, when you think about them, who helps them or who process these issues in the Senate? It is the clerk. It is the clerk of the Senate that processes those committee meetings. They are the ones who give them even the rooms. They are the ones who even process those summonses. If we had agreed and if there was a political goodwill, then the clerk would respectfully tell his members that this is not a matter within the purview that can be interrogated by the Senate, or that this is an issue which should be the domain of the Senate and not National Assembly. So when you think about it, it goes beyond membership of the houses. It is also an institutional problem of Parliament, because the clerk of the Senate seems to be antagonistic, or they are ambivalent with the clerk of the National Assembly. You would think that these are two different institutions. But, Mr. Speaker, you know that this is one Parliament, which is in two different houses. So before you reconcile members, first of all, reconcile the institutional arrangement. Because I was in a mediation committee, Mr. Speaker, which has never taken place, trying to find an agreeable text on some Hmong bill, one of those things. And you would see that this was a money bill. It is a money bill, which was processed through the Senate. So you would wonder how that money bill landed on the floor of the Senate if it was not processed by the clerks of those houses. It is the clerk of those houses who approve those bills. And they are the ones here, of course I know here, if I were to bring a bill which is not within the purview of the National Assembly, the clerk will turn me down. In fact, not even the clerk, the staff will politely tell me that this cannot be handled here because the Constitution or the law refuses, does not allow it. And so in that mediation committee, I sought to summon, first of all, the clerk of the Senate to be told why it was processed in the Senate. That was the end of that mediation committee. I have never seen that mediation. I have never been asked to it because it is the clerks who brings us to these committees. So, Mr. Speaker, as I sit down, this leadership, the ones who are on that row and the ones who are on this row, must start that conversation. And we should not lament on this or that. They must now find a way on how to get the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Speaker of the Senate to agree that we have an institutional problem, and the legislative mechanism or the regulatory mechanism, if it could be by way of regulations, I do not know. But we must be having something which would let us know what cabinet secretary answered to where and how these relations are managed, instead of coming to lament, which will be useful for the public, but may not be useful for the integration of the parliament. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, Honorable Chepkonga, I saw the Senate summon the CS for Treasury. And they were very livid in the media. And when the CS goes, the matters being dealt with, the matters for the national government. Please have your comment in 3 minutes. Members, do we end it at Honorable Chepkonga so that the Speaker can give communication?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, so can you do be as brief as possible?
I will be as succinct as I can, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honorable Kuria, my good friend, for bringing up this matter. Mr. Speaker, Article 93 of the Constitution is absolutely very clear. It states in sub-article 2, it says the National Assembly and the Senate shall perform their respective functions in accordance with this Constitution. The drafters of this Constitution were very clear. They knew which house will perform what function, Mr. Speaker. And so those functions were therefore divided in the fourth schedule. And it is provided what the National Assembly will oversight, what the Senate will oversight. It leaves no confusion, neither contradiction, neither challenges to any of the houses. The law is very clear. Mr. Speaker, you know, if you look at article on the removal, on the role of Parliament, and particularly the Senate, with regard to Article 96(4), it says the Senate participates in the oversight of state officers. And then it restricts those state officers who they participate in oversighting. And it talks about the president and the deputy president. Mr. Speaker, the question that we would like to ask, when they invite state officers who are approved by this House, and they are never approved by the Senate, Mr. Speaker, how do they intend to oversight those state officers? We need a ruling, Mr. Speaker, that state officers should uphold the Constitution as required by Article 3 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And for avoidance of doubt, I'd like to read it for those who may not be conversant. And it states very clearly, that this Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic and binds all persons and all state organs at both levels of government. It says no person may lay claim or exercise state authority except as authorized under this Constitution. Mr. Speaker, if the Senate purports to exercise some state authority, which is not delineated to it, they are in breach of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. And then it says, it goes further to state, Mr. Speaker, that every state officer is obligated to protect and uphold this Constitution, which includes the Senate, includes the National Assembly. The reason why, Mr. Speaker, we don't invite the governors to come to this house is because we are very clear in our mind that it is not our role. Mr. Speaker, we know at some point in our function, in our constituencies, we are aware where the governors have infiltrated into the functions of the national government. And I'll give you one example, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the primary schools, you will find that ECDs are located in primary schools. We have never said those ECDs must be removed, Mr. Speaker. Because it is a county function, we have left them there, Mr. Speaker. And we have not caused any confusion. We have not invited them. In fact, most of the time they come and put up buildings wherever they want in plots or parcels of land that we have purchased using CDF, Mr. Speaker. So that is not a county function. But we don't complain. We are not inviting the governors to appear before the Committee of Education that they are interfering with the education of our children in the primary schools or interfering with the management of the primary schools. Mr. Speaker, we are very clear in our minds. So we are inviting you, Mr. Speaker, that state officers, and particularly the cabinet secretaries, the principal secretaries, when a matter is not relevant, as provided in the Constitution, they should not appear. Mr. Speaker, you have had, you've even seen one which, unfortunately, Mburugara has just walked out. That was, in fact, very hilarious. If you look at the question of Shakahola, there was a committee which was investigating the criminality which obtained in that particular region. Mr. Speaker, DPP is not a devolved function. Neither is it a county function, Mr. Speaker. So why would you waste so much precious money? In fact, you know, it's just that we don't want to say this, Mr. Speaker. It's akin to misuse of public resources to inquire into a function in which they are alien to. So, Mr. Speaker, we want a ruling that obligates the state officers not to go to the Senate. And if they go, Mr. Speaker, we are obligated in this House to commence proceedings for their removal under our role and mandate given to us under Article 94 of the Constitution to oversight state officers, including removing them, Mr. Speaker. We approve them in this House, and they should not go there just wandering, looking for work to do. The work to do is found in the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. So we want a very clear ruling to the state officers, Mr. Speaker. It's not to the Senate. It should not be direct to the Senate. It should be direct to the state officers. In the event of conflict between the National Assembly and the Senate with regard to one particular matter, like, for instance, the question of Adani, that is not the airports, although they are in counties, they are in Kenya. It is a national function. Why would you? And then I saw some senators using big words. We are not lacking. Neither are we bereft of those words, Mr. Speaker. If they appear before us, we will also use big words. If they want us to use big words, we are here, Mr. Speaker. And so I would like to urge you, Mr. Speaker, to give a ruling, a reasoned ruling, and must be directed to the cabinet secretaries that they should not keep wondering when they appeared before this House, when they were being vetted, Mr. Speaker. They swore that they are going to uphold the Constitution, and they must continue to uphold the Constitution. If they are in breach of the Constitution, we will commence sanctions against them. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable David Ucheng. Honorable members, not more than 2 minutes. We want to transact substantive business.
Honorable Speaker, I couldn't agree more with the Honorable Senior Chepkonga. But I wanted us to look at a different angle, Mr. Speaker, as you deliver this ruling. That the Senate, in their thirst and their hunger for fame, their hunger for bonga points, their hunger to look good, have been on a smearing campaign against the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. And this happens almost every single day, and we've kept quiet. Personally, every time this debate has come up in this floor, I've started with the Senate. For the last 10 years, 11 years, I've always started with the Senate because I believe they have a role to play. But where this is going, Mr. Speaker, we are losing the Senate. For me, it's not the National Assembly. We are losing the Senate because the counties lack laws to guide them on health care. The counties lack laws to guide them on agriculture. The counties lack laws to guide them on water. The counties lack laws to guide them on sports, culture, and youth development. The counties lack laws to guide them on trade, commerce of the counties. That is the issue. The issue isn't not even about this wars between us. It's about the Senate shirking its responsibility, so the counties are running on water, not on oil. That's the issue. But because of the Senate misunderstanding, refusing to understand their role, the counties are running amok. It's not just corruption, Mr. Speaker. I don't believe corruption is the issue about the counties. It's about when we went for Majimbo, the reasons why we decided to go counties. In 5, 10, 11 years, Mr. Speaker, we shouldn't be talking about the counties. And I've just, the other day, I was appointed to be a member of a petition committee. We can't be having counties crying for money every year, yet the Senate has not made a law to ensure that they discipline how those counties collect on source revenue and use them. We must hold the Senate to account on its role regarding what the law says, that they must protect the counties. They aren't doing it. They will, for example, I remember in June, the Senate calls people here to discuss what happened in this National Assembly about the young people who stormed Parliament. Shakahola. Oh, exchange rates going down, going to 140. What is their business with that? People are dying in the counties. The cattle cannot be, we need to have the Senate doing its job. We need the counties to work. People want to grow in this country. The Senate must be told in unequivocal words that the Senate must go back to its work as indicated in Article 96 of the Constitution. It's not about sibling rivalry. It's about the leadership of Senate taking the job. The only time we see the Senate talking about counties is if they're impeaching a governor. The only time we hear Senate talking about something is when there's a governor coming on audit issues, and I dare say, extortion. If there's no money being exchanged, you don't see any sales in them. The reason they even go into calling PSs the ministers is not because they want the best for the country. It's not because of something they're going to do for us. It's because they want a chance for rent-seeking. It has to stop. And this House has to stop it. So, Speaker, it's us who must put our feet on. Honorable Chifuka said it. If you can't vet, you can't oversight. If you can't vet, you can't hold accountable. They don't vet ministers. They don't vet PSs. What will they do if they don't go back, if they don't go there? What will the Senate do if the minister refuses to go there? What can they do? Even impeaching the president and the deputy, it must start from here. They can't start with their own motto. It is the lower house. Always been. Must be. This must be communicated to them in unequivocal terms. If we don't do this, Mr. Speaker, we'll continue this confusion. And the courts are as guilty as charged in causing this mess and confusion. But every time you have a matter, they run to court, the court says to them, devolution was meant to work. And the body set up. And Mr. Speaker, this was supposed to be a specialized institution to help guide, help nudge, help direct how counties work. This isn't a small matter, Mr. Speaker. And I hope our Speaker will treat this with the weight it deserves. As I finish, Mr. Speaker, I also want to give a rider.
Honorable Ching, how can you say counties are not being oversighted when in addition to their salary, you passed a budget here for something